Well, I will tell you, I am so inspired by what I have heard, and I know you are as well. But how do we participate in this Great Commission? You know, we've been talking about 7 billion people all over the world. But then there's Psalm 139 that says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and God knit me together in my mother's womb. We're talking about 7 billion, and we're talking about you individually. The slide talks about, what is my life purpose? The Barna Group did a group study and found that 69% of Christians do not know their own purpose or their calling. You would think we as Christians would have a better sense of exactly how God has created us to be, unique as we are, 7 billion people, 7 billion fingerprints. There is only one you. And you have a specific purpose on this earth. God designed you with a specific spiritual DNA, and there is no one else like you. Listen to the words that God said to Jeremiah in the very first chapter, and take these words unto yourself. He said to him, before I made you in your mother's womb, I chose you. Before you were even born, I set you apart for special work. What is our special work? What is our purpose? How do we understand who God created us to be so that we can join this Great Commission in a way that no one else in the world can? Because there is only one you. When we think about purpose, I want you just for a minute to think about a time in your life. You could have been 5 years old or 15 years old or 55 years old, when you were really on purpose. You were doing something, anything, at that moment, and it was energizing and it was easy, and people said, you do that so well. And you say, I don't know, it's just what I do. And if you woke up in the morning and you had to do that thing, you just jumped out of bed. And you didn't get tired doing it. Can you think of a time in your life when you were on purpose? We've heard stories from people who are very on purpose. Can you think about your own moment? And if you think about that moment, tell me what it felt like. What are words that come to mind when you think about moments in your life when you were on purpose? What's a word? Fun? Joy? Fulfilling? Focused. Energizing. That's on purpose. That's when we are doing what we were created to do. Now, let's flip it. Think about a time in your life when you were off purpose. That whatever you were doing at that moment was draining. You could do it, but if that was the thing you had to do when you woke up in the morning, you'd be tempted to hit the snooze alarm because it was just something that you were going to have to muster up all this effort to do. Can you think about a time in your life when you were off purpose? What are the words that come to mind when you think about being off purpose? Useless. Selfish. Empty. Exhausting. Depressing. Do you see how fast these words are coming? We know what it feels like to be off purpose. That's when we're kind of doing something that we weren't designed to do, and it's just harder. Henry David Thoreau has a quote that says, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation." How sad. I've also heard the female version that says the mass of women lead lives of aimless distraction. That's off purpose. That is not when we know who we are made to be, and we are on purpose, as the stories that you've heard. So how do we understand our purpose? Well, I'm going to be sharing with you some principles from 2 books that one of my partners wrote, Kevin McCarthy, The On Purpose Person and The On Purpose Business. Now, many of you are probably very familiar with Rick Warren's work around purpose-driven life. Let me tell you about how these 2 books are different but aligned. Essentially, Rick Warren says that we as all Christians share the same 5 purposes. We all have the same 5 purposes: worship, discipleship, ministry, fellowship, evangelism. I would say yes, and God made every single one of us different. So how I live out those 5 purposes that Rick Warren talks about is going to be different from you. So Kevin's work goes down to a very deep level of who was I created to be, drilling into our past and who we are and our on-purpose moments. Now, there's some basic principles and definitions that he talks about in the book. So I'm going to review those with you. And then tonight, we're actually going to do a little exercise to help you either identify your 2-word purpose statement or make some progress toward that. It's not typically something you can do in 20 minutes, but we're going to at least give you the exposure to it so you can continue to think about this. Because when we are on purpose, as you have said, it's very energizing, and we know we're doing what we were created to do. So Kevin has these 4 definitions. So the first one is around purpose. Purpose answers the question, why? Why do I exist? Why am I here? A question probably all of us have asked sometime in our life. The next is vision. Where am I going? Maybe not tonight, but I do invite you at some point to sit down and think about your life 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now. What do you want to be doing? What does it look like? What would you like it to look like? Most of us never envision, and those 10 years come by pretty fast. So vision is seeing, envisioning, where is it that I want to go? As we define missions, it's then the how. If that is my vision, how am I going to get there? And the last of the 4 is values. What's important to me along the way? What are my core values? You're hearing a lot about Campus Crusade, purpose, vision, mission, and values. So how do I understand what I'm about, and how do I align with that? And how do I bring what is uniquely me to the party? So what we're going to be doing tonight in just a few minutes is focusing on purpose and focusing on your unique purpose. So let's talk about purpose a little bit. So I want to kind of lay the groundwork so as you do your work around purpose, you have some basic principles to think about. The first thing around purpose is that it's permanent. It's who you were created to be in your mother's womb, and it's the package that came out. One woman said to me, well, my purpose just went away to college. And I said, that child is not your purpose. You can live out your purpose, but you had purpose before that child was born, and you will have purpose after that child goes away. So purpose is permanent. So if you think about your whole life, what has been consistently true about who you are? We did talk about an on-purpose moment. I'd like you to think about those on-purpose moments, because those are each clues, if you will, to your purpose statement. When I work with people on this work, I basically tell them this is like a puzzle box, but the top of the puzzle box is gone. So we don't know what the picture looks like, but we have a lot of pieces. And so through the process together, we just take out each piece and examine it and put it on a table and see if it fits somewhere else. And over time, more and more pieces come out on the table and the picture emerges. But knowing your on-purpose moments and what's in common, those are key pieces. Here's another key piece. What is it that you most want for other people? If someone was meeting with you having coffee and you were having an on-purpose moment, you were feeling great about the conversation, and they left, and I came to you and said, what is it you most want for that person? That's a key. That's a puzzle piece. So essentially, purpose, as I mentioned, finishes the statement, I exist to the glory of God, to serve by 2 words. Why 2 words? Well, what we found, both individually and organizationally, if it's much more than 2 words, we don't remember it. I've talked to a lot of people, and they say, oh yeah, I've done this kind of work before. I've got it all written down. Great, what is it? Well, I don't know, it's just all written down. So it can't direct my everyday if I can't know it instantaneously. So it's a 2-word purpose statement. So what we're going to do tonight, because we can't take all of the time to completely explore this, is we've put together a worksheet that has 32 people's purpose statements, and you're going to borrow one tonight. So at your tables, there are worksheets. If you'll grab one of those, I'll tell you how we're going to spend a few minutes working on this together. So essentially what you have is this borrow a purpose statement sheet. And it looks sort of like a NCAA basketball bracket or a tennis tournament if you're a tennis player. What you're going to do, thinking about those things we talked about, it's been your whole life. It connects with your on-purpose moments. It's what you most want for other people. You're going to run this tournament. And I suggest you just advance the numbers so you don't get writer's cramp. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at igniting joy or imparting wisdom. And you're going to say, which one just kind of intuitively feels like that's more like me? And advance that number. You'll go down to the next 2, and you'll advance that number. And what you're going to do over the next few minutes, I'm going to give you a few minutes to work on this, is to run the whole tournament to get to 1 out of the 32 that feels most like you. If one of them doesn't make sense to you, keep moving. It's probably not yours. All right? You're just going to borrow a purpose statement tonight. I trust that you will be in the ballpark when you get done. So just go ahead and quickly, just answer them quickly. Don't think too much about it. We'll just pray as the Lord leads you through this process. If you did not get all the way finished, I want to encourage you to complete it as a way just to say, okay, Lord, there are 32 ways on this page to fulfill the Great Commission. They're all different. They're all unique. We need them all. And this is just 32 purpose statements. Theoretically, it could be any gerund, ing word in the world, and any object in the world. This is just to begin to think about how we each uniquely fulfill the Great Commission. It's important because I love the quote, people lose their way because they lose their why. Why am I here? Why did you make me this way? All of us want to spend more time being in those on-purpose moments that you mentioned. And we are all different and unique. This process around purpose, vision, mission, values is so important. It can also apply to businesses, organizations like Cru, and families. It's basically the same 4 principles. It's purpose. Why do we exist? Our vision. Where are we going? Missions. How are we going to get there? Values. What are important to us as an organization, as a business? And there's this real key heart commitment piece is when the purpose of the person aligns with the purpose of the organization. So if I know my purpose and the organization is clear about its purpose and I know how I can connect uniquely and in a way that's on purpose for me. Because very often we can get involved in organizations and somehow it starts to feel off purpose. Sometimes we have to give ourselves permission to say no to some things so we can say yes to others. But it's about knowing my purpose and how it aligns with the purpose of the organization that I want to support. So I think with everything that you've heard over the last couple days, it really is identifying that unique DNA that God built within you to say, this is how he wants to use you to fulfill the Great Commission in a unique way that no one else can do, because there's only one you. I love this quote from Ephesians. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. When we were in our mother's womb, he was preparing in advance what he wanted us to do. And for such a time as this, as we hear these stories about how the gospel is being preached all over the world, and these are the last days, I want to be on purpose. I want to be doing exactly what God created me to do. And your theme of the conference is about imprint for your life and for your legacy. And that just makes me think again of that fingerprint, that unique fingerprint that is yours alone as you imprint on your life and those you influence and the legacy that we will all leave for the kingdom of God as we live and give on purpose. Thank you so much.